Hello, welcome to my channel, another Bibliophile Reads. My name is Greg, and today I'm doing a sort of response video, and I'm actually responding to a number of different institutions and booktubers. I want to talk about the Atlantic's list of the great American novels. Around last month, they created a list of 136 great American novels from the last 100 years. And I found out about this list because I watched a video from Greg at Supposedly Fun, and he did a response video of going in blind and reading that list to see what was on the list and how he thought about the novels on the list. Brian at Bookish did his own list of 25 books that could be the great American novel. And to follow that up, there is Grix, from Grix, etc., who says the great American novel does not exist. Grix is not an American, and he questions whether there is a such thing as the great American novel. What is America? Because what many people call the America is really just the United States. But he questioned whether there is a great American novel. And I've been wanting to jump into this fray for a couple of weeks because I do have some bones to pick. More with the Atlantic than anyone else. I sort of doubt their criteria for their list. They did the past 100 years, which means that books published in 2023 are included in this list. And I think that is way too soon to be judging a book in its context of being a great American novel. I think some time needs to go by. Now, one of those books that was on the list was The Love Songs of W.E.D. Du Bois. I read that as a judge for the BookTube prize. When I submitted my ballot, that book finished number 2 out of 6 books that I read. It was The Magician by Colm Tolbeen that I ranked a little bit higher. And I ranked it that a bit higher because I was reading, or just about to read, The Magic Mountain. And I was really sort of enamored with Thomas Mann at the time. But The Love Songs of W.E.D. Du Bois, it was not a bad book by any stretch of the imagination. And parts of it were really good. But will it be a great book that is remembered in 100 years? Who am I to judge? But if I were to judge, I would say that book is going to fall by the wayside and not be remembered. It was not great. It was just good. They also have another book, The Autobiography of X, which is currently, or was currently, on the BookTube prize list. It got knocked off in the first round. So some of my fellow judges did not think highly of that book. But for that is, again, I think those books are too new. And I understand why The Atlantic is doing that. They want to highlight current, contemporary authors who are publishing books every year, every other year, so you can get into their work and follow their body of work as they grow. I think that is one of the important reasons why The Atlantic did as they did. I'm going from my list, and I'm going to give you 20 great American novels, alternative great American novels, not on the Atlantic list. And for my criteria, I'm saying that books have to have been published at least 20 years ago. Give that book 2 decades at the minimum before you can start considering it a great American novel or not. So my list is just the 20th century. That's a very easy cutoff. And also on the Atlantic list, I'm going to get heat for this, but I think the Atlantic list had a diversity checklist that they were going through to make sure that everyone is covered who can write a book and have a book shown to represent that group. I'm really not a diverse reader. I started, seriously reading literature in the early 80s at university, and diversity reading really was not a thing back then, and I never picked it up. So when I give you my list of 20 great American novels, you will notice a lack of diversity, and that's just the way that I read. Well, anyway, let me tell you what I think are 20 great American novels. And one of the other things I put on this list is an author that appeared on the Atlantic list cannot appear on my list. So they put in Philip K. Dick, Do Androids Dream of Electronic Sheep? That means I can't include Philip K. Dick. I also highly question why they use Do Androids Dream of Electronic Sheep? I don't think that's anywhere near his best novel. My best guess is that they're trying to piggyback off the movie Blade Runner. Some people like the movie Blade Runner. God knows why. Okay, my 20 great American novels. And I'm going to list them roughly in publication order, and I'm just going to give a very quick, succinct description of the book. The Maltese Falcon by Dashiell Hammett, published 1930. The first and maybe one of the best hardcore detective novels. The Postman Always Wings Twice. The Postman Always Rings Twice by James M. Cain, published 1934. This turns the mystery novel on its head by having the criminal be the protagonist of the novel. Call It Sleep by Henry Roth, 1934. This is the story of Jewish immigrant experience in New York City, a modernist novel. Johnny Got His Gun by Dalton, Trumbo, 1938. This is a novel to explore the horror of war and the horror of what people do in war and what can be done in them in war. Earth Abides by George R. Stewart, 1949. This is a science fiction novel about the end of the world. A plague descends upon the country and the world and wipes out most of the population. The great thing about this is that there is no dark overlord for the characters to fight. They just have to deal with the post-apocalyptic world. The Man with the Golden Arm by Nelson Algren, 1949. This is the story of drug addiction and what can happen to a man who falls into that crevasse where he cannot escape his drug addiction. Butcher's Crossing by John Williams, 1960. This is where a student of Emerson in the 1860s, 1870s goes out west to find himself and finds himself on a buffalo hunt. And this is just a devastating story of the cruelty of hunters and what they can do to animals. Sometimes a Great Notion by Ken Kesey, 1964. Ken Kesey's more known for his novel One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, but this is the story of a logging family up in Oregon, and it uses some very experimental narrative style. Narration between characters will switch in mid-paragraph. In Cold Blood by Truman Capote, 1966. Is this a novel or is this nonfiction? This is what is known as a nonfiction novel, the story of killers who are being executed. Fabulous story, and pushes the definition of what it could mean to be a novel. Deliverance by James Dickey, 1970. A group of men go on a canoe trip in the wilds of Georgia, only to meet up with some backwoods folks and have a real rough time. And Dickey was a poet, and his prose is absolutely gorgeous. Angle of Repose by Wallace Stegner, 1971. This is the story of an author exploring what his grandparents were doing in the West. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas by Hunter S. Thompson, 1971. Again, an example of a nonfiction novel. When I was a bookseller in the 80s, this was kept in the nonfiction section. It's sort of becoming clear that there may be a lot more fiction than nonfiction in this, but it is a story of a journalist, Hunter S. Thompson, who has a drug-infused weekend in Las Vegas. 52 Pickup by Elmore Leonard, 1972. You know, these paperback mysteries don't get a lot of cred sometimes, but Elmore Leonard does a darn good job writing these stories. And this one is about a businessman who discovers that his girlfriend has been kidnapped and all the hell that breaks loose after that. No police involved. Dahlgren by Samuel R. Delany, 1975. Is this a science fiction novel or is this a literary novel? It really sort of combines the two in ways that science fiction did not really do before this book. It is a story of a city somewhere in the Midwest. Is it lost in time? Does it exist? It's just a fabulous experience. It is also can be rough reading because there's a lot of sexually explicit material in this novel. J.R. by William Gaddis, 1976. This is a dark, humorous look at the financial industry during the 70s of New York City. This is where an 8th grade boy amasses in paper a fortune. And with this fortune that really isn't a fortune, it's just a whole lot of debt, wields a lot of power in the business industries of New York City. Sophie's Choice by William Styron, 1979. This is a book that begins in New York City with a young author meeting a Polish woman. She is Jewish and she had a tough time in Auschwitz. A lot of this deals with Europe, but it's an American novel because it deals with how Americans are looking towards the Holocaust and when we think about the Holocaust. A Confederacy of Dunces by John Kennedy Toole, 1981. An absolutely brilliant, humorous novel about one of the most detestable human beings ever to hit a novel. But that is Ignatius Reilly, and he is so dislikable. I absolutely love him. A Prayer for Owen Meany by John Irving, 1989. I think this is John Irving's best book. It is the story of a friendship between two men. They started in boys. Owen Meany is a very peculiar boy who killed the narrator's mother with a foul ball. And Owen Meany has an unusual voice and an unusual way of writing. Whenever he writes or ever he talks in this book, every word is capitalized. And the story of their friendship and the story of how they deal with the Vietnam War is absolutely brilliant. Mouse by Art Spiegelman, 1991. I am including both Mouse 1 and Mouse 2 in this as one book. This is the story of Art Spiegelman talking about his father's experience in Auschwitz, but it's also the story of an Auschwitz survivor in New York City and how you come to terms with being a survivor. It's a graphic novel, and I think it's the best graphic novel I have ever read. And lastly, Fathers and Crows by William T. Vollmann, 1992. William T. Vollmann is one of those geniuses who can write these massive 900-page novels. This is the story of the Jesuits in the Iroquois Indians. Early on in American history, it is mostly set in Canada, but it spreads out its wings other parts of America and other parts of the world, because William T. Vollmann has a global view. And this is a book that's trying to describe how Europeans interact with the American Indians, the Native American Indians that lived in the United States and Canada. Absolutely stunningly brilliant book. And that is my list of alternative great American novels to the Atlantic's list. Thank you for watching, and keep on reading.